Hey guys, this is Phuc here at Data Science Dojo. Hope you guys had a good time at the first day workshop. And I wanted to talk to more things about the workshop. So you're going to get at least these three or four files that will ship with your workshop material. So you should get the Titanic CVS, part of your homework, the supplemental slides. What the supplemental slides are going to do is they're going to basically supplement the slides you saw today. So it's going to be a comparison back and forth between the R console and what the console should output. So if you're having a problem trying to recreate the code using the PowerPoint slides, just look at these slides. They should help a lot. We also attached a code repository, right? So every single code that is in the slides, they should be in here with comments and the correct syntax. I recommend opening this file. It's an R file, opening it in Sublime or Notepad++. That way it's annotated correctly. You see these colors. Oh, it's very pretty. By the way, if this is more for the homework, if you guys are struggling on the homework and you're trying to recreate a page but can't, you can check this. This is everything in here is copy and pastable. So if you're missing just a single comma or something like that, you can check that very easily. Alright, so this is what I really wanted to talk to you guys about today. So this is a continuing tutorial on a small part of Session 3. So Session 3 featured one of the parts where we went back to the Titanic dataset. So on slide 51, we had a box plot right here. Actually, it's your 51 is my 53, right? So I've since added two more slides as to fully how to recreate the box plot, right? On this slide right here. So we formed a four-dimensional box plot, compared male, female, whether they're a child or an adult or a fae or a survivor. But you will notice that adult and child is nowhere to be found in the Titanic dataset. We have age, and from that we can figure out whether or not they're an adult or a child. So you might have trouble with this part right here where we say Titanic with child column. So we actually created and appended a new column where we quantified whether they were a child or an adult, right? So instead of saying age 42, it would say adult. Alright, so let me show you guys how to do that really quickly in R. I have my RStudio open. Alright, so let's first import our data. So Titanic CVS should have shipped with you. Let me show you guys a quick tip, right? So you want to get your CVS file, click on it, and try to rename it, right? But don't actually rename it, just copy the name of the file. Then click on your file path, right? Go up top, add a /, and then paste in the file name. There you go. You have the full path of the file, right? Because that's what our console wants. All right, now here's another quick tip, right? So you paste it in. R is going to be expecting everything that is a / to have two /, right? You can add them in manually, but that's tedious. You can just go to Notepad++ or Sublime. I'm using Sublime personally. And then for every, use the replace function, right? Control H in this case in Sublime, Control F in Notepad++. Everywhere there's a /, replace it with two /, right? And then click on replace all. Same thing in Notepad++. Anyways, so now everything has two basically /, and that's what's going to be required. So we want to import the data. So Titanic. Let's name our data Titanic. Okay, and then let's read.cvs. Now we have quotes, right? So now it expects our file path in there. All right, awesome. Let's see if that imported. Let's see what's in here. Beautiful. All right, so there's our Titanic data. Now remember what we were trying to do. We're trying to quantify and basically bin this column of age into groupings. Let's define what a child is. For me, I'm going to define a child as below 13. So your data is definitely going to change depending on what you define as a child. Okay, so let's do this. So let's isolate the child column. So we have Titanic age. Alright, so that's going to hopefully, there we go. Now we have all the ages, right? So let's see that. So we have 22, 38, 26, 35, 35. Alright, we have 22, 38, 26, 35, 35. Beautiful. Let's get every child where, in the child table, let's find every child that's less than 13. Okay, so we have every child that's less than 13. Because these are right now numerical data, let's keep it numerical, right? I'm just going to do, so for every child, I'm going to quantify as 1, right? So if I put a 1 there, it means it's a child. If I put a 2 there, it means it's an adult, right? So let's do that. So in the child table, every time we see a child below 13, let's assign it to 1. Okay? And child, every time we find a child that's greater or equal to 13, they'll be categorized as 2. All right, so let's see what happened to the data. All right, so you see what happened to the data. The data went from all of basically this into this, right? So everything got replaced between 2s and 1s, right? So now we know they're a child. So now we can actually replace them with strings. So every time you see, so let's go into the child table. Every time you see a child where child equals 1, let's replace that with the string of child, right? Let's do the same thing, but every time you see a child where child equals 2, let's replace that with adult. Alright, so let's see what happened. Ah, beautiful. So we have a table completely filled with now child and adult. Alright, so how do we get this back into our data, right? Because right now it's all by itself. So let's combine them now. Alright, so we have, so in the slides we named them as Titanic with child column. Let's keep that consistent, right? So I'm going to use a command called cbind. And what cbind does is it appends a new column at the end of the table, right? So cbind, so we want our entire Titanic data set, and we want our newly created child array, right? So I should actually call it a vector, but all right, so let's click on that. Let's enter, and let's see what happens. So Titanic with child column, and let's get the head of that because I know that's going to be gigantic. Head. Aha! I noticed how this is now in there. So a column called child, when it quantifies adult and child. Now, you'll also notice that there's a whole bunch of NAs, right, missing data in this graph. But you will notice from the box plot, there's only child and adult. There is no field for unknown, right? So that means it must have been removed. So let's remove all the NAs. Alright, so let's go into the Titanic with child column, right, so let's transform the data. So Titanic with child column, and I'm going to use a command called is not NA, right? So this is going to return all the fields that are not NA, only where it isn't NA, under the new column we've created called child, right? And don't forget this comma right here, right? Or else the whole thing won't work. Alright, so let's see what that did, right? So head Titanic with child. You will notice the NAs are gone. So that removed probably somewhere around 170-ish missing data sets. So there you go. Also, something to keep in mind. So lapply. Okay, let's check the typing of these things. So lapply Titanic with child column and class. All right. You will also notice that child is automatically a factor. That's good. We want it to be a factor. It means it's categorical data, but sometimes it doesn't do that automatically for you, right? So you have to check that before you actually start box plotting, right? Because box plots are going to expect factor data. But something you will also notice, it casted, when I changed it and created that new Titanic with child column table, it casted survive as an integer. Alright, so let's cast that back. So we want to use the as factor command. So we want to factor survived back into a factor. So survived has a D on the end of it. Okay, so we want to assign that back into survived. There we go. Now if we do lapply again, I'm going to copy and paste this from over here. Yeah, booyah. Factor is back on track to being box plottable. Now you can basically just go into the code repository, take the code that's in the slides, and then basically just copy and paste it. I wouldn't copy this code directly from the slide just because there's some spacing issues here if you do copy it. So I recommend going into the code repository, copying and pasting it from here, bringing it into RStudio, and voila! you have your box plot. If you actually get an error at this step and it says something about ggplot, operation cannot be found or something, that means you have not installed or imported the ggplot2. So you would want to install packages gg in quotes ggplot2, right? I've already installed it, so I'm not going to install it again, and then I want to reference the library ggplot2. Okay, so if you're having errors there, that's how you fix it. Now, my name is Phuc. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your workshop.